Iceland, summer of 982. A red-haired killer stands at the edge of a dock. His hands are stained with blood. Not metaphorically, literally. He has just been banished from the entire island for double murder. He has no home, no prospects, and no future. But in 3 years this man will return with the greatest sales pitch in medieval history. He will convince 500 people to abandon everything and sail into the Atlantic toward a frozen wasteland he will call Greenland. We remember this as a quirky naming accident. We laugh about it at parties. Iceland is green, Greenland is ice. How funny. But it was not an accident. It was the first recorded real estate scam in Western history. And it worked because Erik the Red understood something that modern marketing executives spend billions to learn. Perception is not reality. Perception is currency, and if you control the name, you control the narrative. This is not a story about exploration. This is a story about branding, desperation, and the ledger of survival. Because Erik did not discover Greenland. He rebranded bankruptcy as opportunity. Let me take you back further. Norway, around 960. Erik's father, Thorvald, commits manslaughter. The punishment is not prison. It is exile. The family flees across the North Atlantic to Iceland. They are economic refugees. Iceland itself is barely a century old as a Norse colony. The land is volcanic, cold, and unforgiving. Trees are scarce. Soil is thin. Winters are brutal. But it is a frontier, and frontiers attract 2 kinds of people. Those with nothing to lose and those running from something. Erik grows up in this world. He inherits his father's temper and his father's curse. He is proud, violent, and unwilling to bend. In Viking society, these traits are not necessarily weaknesses. They are marks of strength. But strength without control is just chaos waiting to happen. The first killing happens over slaves. Erik owns slaves who cause a landslide that damages a neighbor's property. The neighbor's friend, a man named Eyjolf the Foul, kills Erik's slaves as revenge. This is not just an insult. It is theft. It is destruction of capital. Erik hunts Eyjolf down and kills him. He also kills another man named Holmgang Hrafn, probably for supporting Eyjolf or for some secondary insult. 2 men are dead. The families demand justice at the Thing, the local assembly where Viking law is enforced. Erik is found guilty. The sentence is not execution. It is lesser outlawry, 3 years banishment from his home district. If anyone finds him in the forbidden zone, they can kill him legally. Erik moves to some offshore islands to wait out his sentence. But Erik has not learned his lesson. He lends valuable wooden beams to a man named Thorgest. In Iceland, timber is gold. There are almost no trees. Every plank is precious. When Erik asks for the beams back, Thorgest refuses. Another insult. Another economic loss. Erik takes them by force. Thorgest chases him. A fight erupts. Erik kills Thorgest and several of Thorgest's sons. Now the blood is deeper. Now the Thing has no choice. Erik is declared a full outlaw, not from a district but from all of Iceland. He has 3 years to leave the island entirely. If he stays, he is a dead man. He is 30-something years old, married, with children. He is a 2-time killer with nowhere to go. Norway is closed to him. Iceland has expelled him. He is bankrupt in every sense. He has no land, no allies, and no future. But he has heard stories. Sailors sometimes speak of land to the west. Decades earlier, a man named Gunnbjörn Olfsson was blown off course and claimed to have seen islands or coastline far beyond Iceland. No one bothered to explore it. It was too far, too risky, too unknown. But for Erik, the unknown is the only option left. So in the summer of 982, Erik gathers a crew, provisions a ship, and sails west into the open Atlantic. He is not an explorer. He is a fugitive. He is not seeking glory. He is seeking survival. And what he finds will change the course of history, not because it is valuable, but because he will make people believe it is. After days at sea, Erik spots land. It is massive, far larger than Iceland. He sails along the eastern coast, searching for a place to land. What he sees is hell. A wall of glaciers tumbling into the sea, mountains covered in ice, no vegetation, no shelter, nothing but frozen desolation. But Erik does not give up. He sails around the southern tip and up the western coast. And there, in the fjords, he finds something slightly less terrible. The western coast is still harsh, still cold, but there are patches of grass in the valleys during summer. There are seals, there are fish, there are sheltered bays. It is not paradise, but it is survivable. Erik spends the next 3 years exploring this coastline. He maps the fjords, he hunts, he fishes. He survives alone in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And during those 3 years, something changes in Erik's mind. He realizes that he cannot settle this land alone. It is too big. The winters are too long. He needs labor, livestock, tools, families. He needs a community. But who would voluntarily come to this frozen rock? Erik understands human psychology better than most men of his time. He understands that people are not motivated by truth. They are motivated by hope. He understands that in a world of scarce land and violent feuds, people are desperate for opportunity. And he understands that the name of a place shapes its perceived value. If he returns to Iceland and tells the truth, that this new land is a desolate ice sheet, barely suitable for survival, no one will come. So Erik makes a decision. He will lie. He will rebrand this frozen wasteland. He will give it a name that promises fertility, prosperity, and hope. He will call it Greenland. Think about the audacity of that. A convicted double murderer is about to launch the medieval world's first marketing campaign. He is going to use branding to manipulate perception and extract capital in the form of human labor and resources. He is going to sell hope to the desperate. This is not exploration. This is a con. And it works because Erik understands the ledger of human desperation. When Iceland's 3-year exile period ends, Erik returns. He comes back not as a broken man, but as a salesman. He talks about the land he discovered to the west. He describes green valleys, rich pastures, and abundant resources. He calls it Greenland. The name itself is a promise. It suggests lush farmland and a better life. And the timing is perfect. Iceland in the late 10th century is struggling. The population is growing faster than the land can support. Farms are failing. Feuds are constant. Winters are getting harsher. People are hungry. People are desperate. Erik is not just selling a place, he is selling an escape. He goes from village to village, farm to farm, telling his story. He shows people the route. He promises them as much land as they can work. He paints a picture of freedom from Iceland's crowding and violence. And people believe him. Why would they not? Erik is from a prominent family. He is a known navigator. He survived 3 years in this new land, and most importantly, he gave it a name that sounds like opportunity. By the summer of 985, 25 ships are ready to sail. 25 ships filled with families, livestock, tools, and supplies, perhaps 500 people in total. Every one of them is betting their future on Erik's word. Imagine the scene at the docks. Families saying goodbye to relatives they will never see again. Children excited for adventure. Women trying to hide their fear. Men loading everything they own onto wooden ships. Every possession, every animal, every seed for planting, and then they depart. 25 ships heading west into the Atlantic, following Erik the Red toward the promise of Greenland. But the Atlantic is not kind. It is one of the most dangerous bodies of water on the planet. The journey from Iceland to Greenland is roughly 450 miles of open ocean. There are no landmarks. There is no weather forecast. Navigation is done by the sun, the stars, and the flight of birds. The fleet runs into storms, massive waves, howling winds. Ships are scattered. Some take on water. Some are blown off course. Some simply vanish. Of the 25 ships that left Iceland, only 14 make it to Greenland. 11 ships are lost. That is nearly half the fleet. Hundreds of people drown. Entire families are erased. Dreams sink to the ocean floor. But the survivors press on. They have come too far to turn back. They have nothing to return to. When they finally reach the coast of Greenland, when they sail into the western fjords, they must feel relief. They survived. And then they see the truth. Greenland is not green. It is ice. It is rock. It is a harsh, unforgiving wasteland that barely resembles the paradise Erik described. Yes, there are patches of grass in the valleys. Yes, the fjords offer some shelter. But this is not the lush farmland they imagined. This is a place where survival will be a daily struggle. They have been conned. They have been lied to. They risked everything, lost friends and family at sea, and arrived at a frozen prison. But what can they do? They cannot go back. Their ships are damaged. They have no supplies for a return journey. They burned their bridges in Iceland. They are stuck. So they do the only thing they can. They adapt. They settle. They survive. Erik establishes the first settlement at Brattahlíð, which becomes the capital of the colony. Other families spread out along the western coast, claiming fjords and building farms. They raise sheep and cattle in small numbers. They hunt seals for meat, oil, and skins. They hunt caribou inland. They hunt walrus for their ivory tusks, which become Greenland's primary export. Walrus ivory is valuable in Europe as a substitute for elephant ivory. This is the only product that makes Greenland economically viable. Without walrus ivory, the colony has no trade currency. Without trade, they have no iron, no timber, no grain. The entire economic model of the Greenland colony rests on killing walruses and selling their tusks to Europe. This is not a sustainable economy. This is extraction. This is a resource trap. But for now, it works. Erik becomes the undisputed leader of the colony. He is the chieftain, the founder, the man who brought them there. Despite the lies, despite the deaths, Erik commands respect. He survived 3 years alone here. He knows how to live in this place. And he is still proud, still violent, still unwilling to bend. The colony grows. At its peak, around 5,000 Norse live in Greenland, spread across 2 main settlements. The eastern settlement, which is actually in the southwest, is the larger and more prosperous. The western settlement is smaller, more remote, and even harsher. They build churches. They establish a thing. They create a legal system. They trade with Europe. They even send expeditions further west. Erik's son, Leif Erikson, sails to a place they call Vinland around the year 1000. This is North America. The Norse reached the New World 500 years before Columbus. But they do not stay. The distance is too great. The indigenous peoples are hostile. After a few years, they abandon Vinland and return to Greenland. Back in Greenland, life is hard but stable for about 3 centuries. The colonists cling to their European identity. They dress like Europeans. They farm like Europeans. They worship like Europeans. Greenland even has its own bishop, appointed by the Pope. This shows how integrated the colony is into the medieval Catholic world. But the colony is fragile. It depends entirely on trade with Norway and Iceland. Every piece of iron, every plank of timber, every sack of grain must be imported. In exchange, they export walrus ivory, walrus hide rope, polar bear skins, and furs. The entire economy is balanced on a knife edge, and in the early 14th century, that balance begins to collapse. First, the climate changes. The medieval warm period, which made the settlement of Greenland possible, is ending. The Little Ice Age is beginning. Temperatures drop. Winters become longer and colder. Ice expands. The growing season shrinks. Livestock die. Hay harvests fail. Survival becomes even harder. Second, the Black Death strikes Europe in the mid-14th century. Perhaps a third of Europe's population dies. Norway, Greenland's primary trading partner, is devastated. The Norwegian crown loses interest in maintaining distant colonies. Ships stop coming. The Greenlanders are increasingly isolated. Third, the market for walrus ivory collapses. European trade routes to Africa expand. Elephant ivory becomes more accessible and cheaper. Walrus ivory loses its value. Greenland's only export is now worthless. The economic foundation of the colony has disintegrated. And fourth, the Thule people, ancestors of the modern Inuit, are expanding into Greenland from the north. They are better adapted to the Arctic than the Norse. They use kayaks, dog sleds, and sophisticated hunting techniques. They thrive where the Norse struggle. The western settlement is abandoned around 1360. We do not know why. Farms were left behind, animals still in pens. It suggests a sudden departure. Were they killed by the Thule? Did they flee to the eastern settlement? Did they starve? We do not know. The eastern settlement holds on longer, but by the early 15th century, it, too, is failing. Ships from Europe stop coming altogether. The last recorded contact with Greenland is a wedding in 1408. After that, silence. When European explorers finally returned to Greenland in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, they find the Norse settlements abandoned. The farms are ruins. The churches are empty. The people are gone. Some explorers found frozen bodies in Norse clothing. The last remnants of a vanished colony. What happened to the final Greenlanders? Did they die of starvation? Did they leave? Did they intermarry with the Inuit? We do not know. The Norse colony as a distinct entity simply vanished. Here's the tragic irony. The Inuit thrived in Greenland. They still live there today. They adapted to the environment in ways the Norse never could or would. The Norse clung to their European ways. They refused to fully adopt Inuit technologies, even when those would have saved them. They insisted on raising cattle and sheep when seals and fish were more reliable. They built European-style churches when resources should have gone to survival. Their cultural stubbornness, their refusal to adapt, doomed them. Sovereignty is solvency, and the Norse Greenlanders went bankrupt, not just economically but culturally. They could not pay the price of adaptation, so they disappeared. But the lie lived on. The name Greenland stuck. For over 1,000 years the world has called this frozen island Greenland. Erik's marketing trick outlived his colony by centuries, and today Greenland is in the news again. Climate change is melting its ice sheet at an alarming rate. The name Greenland, Erik's lie, is becoming more accurate. Parts of Greenland are turning green as glaciers retreat. It is a bitter irony. The land that was named green as a con might actually become green, but for all the wrong reasons. And Greenland is politically significant now. It has vast natural resources. Rare earth minerals, oil, and gas are becoming accessible as the ice melts. Countries around the world, including the United States, China, and Russia, are interested in Greenland's future. There has been talk of independence from Denmark. There has been talk of purchasing Greenland. And through all of this, the Inuit people of Greenland, the descendants of the Thule who outlasted the Norse, are asserting their rights and identity. They are the ones who truly made Greenland home. They adapted. They survived. So what does the story of Erik the Red teach us? It teaches us that perception is currency. Erik understood that the name of a place shapes its perceived value. By calling the land Greenland, he made it appealing. He made it seem like opportunity. And that name has lasted over 1,000 years. The lie became the brand. Second, it teaches us that desperation is a market. The people who followed Erik to Greenland were not fools. They were desperate. Iceland was failing them. Erik offered hope. And when people are desperate, they will believe almost anything. Third, it teaches us that economic sustainability matters more than cultural pride. The Norse Greenlanders were resilient, but they were not flexible. They held on to their European identity too tightly. They refused to learn from the Inuit. And in the end, that refusal killed them. Sovereignty is solvency. If you cannot pay the price of survival, you disappear. And fourth, it teaches us that history is written by those who control the narrative. Erik the Red was a killer and a liar, but he is remembered as a founder. The Greenland colony was built on deception and death, but it lasted nearly 500 years. History is complicated. People are complicated.